Hi everyone, it's Fitz with the Postgame Walk and Talk, which if you've been following along is pretty much sit on my butt for road games because I didn't go to Lubbock. I'm here in my studio where I watch the game with my trusty sidekick Daphne, who continues to be at my side. And speaking of dogs, how about the officiating? K-State loses 73-68, and they did get screwed down the stretch. I'm not arguing that. But again, K-State was in a late game situation that they couldn't execute, couldn't get it done. And maybe this time it's because a foul wasn't called or a foul two wasn't called. And maybe it's because they just didn't know what to do. They weren't cut out enough. They weren't defined enough of who they are in late game situations. Before I get into some of the gritty details, let me say a few things. I thought these guys just battled their butts off against a really good team that's almost impossible to beat at home. You know, Bruce Weber was raving about the atmosphere. On TV, it almost sounded like an NBA atmosphere, to be honest. I don't know if it's how ESPN produced it, but it sounded loud, but it almost sounded like an NBA game. I don't know how to exactly explain that more than a college game. But the guys fought, man. They led early. They lost their way late in the first half and fell down at halftime, and I thought that was it. And they roared back, and they got control, and they took a lead, and they couldn't hold on to that. And Tech found a way to make enough plays. And maybe it was because there was a couple questionable calls and no calls at the end. But it's always something. And they did this without Marquise Noel. And Tech was shorthanded a little bit too. And everyone's shorthanded right now. I mean, if all you got is your very best players, you're not going to succeed in this era of college basketball. And that's just the way it is. If you can only be good when you're at your best, then you're not very good. It's increasingly frustrating to watch K-State in late game situations because I want you to be honest with yourself, even if you're a huge supporter of this team and you think it's just misfortune that happens to K-State in late game situations. In late game situations this year, when do you think they ran a play designed off the bench that was properly executed and created a really good shot? Instead, they're typically putting the hands in one player, ball in the hands of one player, and trying to create a long three-pointer. Nigel Pack shooting a 25-foot three-pointer is okay. I got no problem with it. Kid can stroke it. But he was against a bigger guy. He didn't really do anything to get open. There was no pick. There was no action. It was just Nigel, ball, go. I'm all for players making plays, but at some point, your coach has to give you points off the bench. At some point, the coach has to get some things called in a huddle that lead to points on the court. And it's just an ongoing frustration. So even if you think K-State got screwed, was there something else they could have done? Did the refs screw them out of 13 rebounds? I think that was the rebounding deficit. Did they screw them so hard that Tech shot the ball better from the field? I just think it says a lot about this group of kids that they were in this game at the end. And unfortunately, it says a lot about how they're prepared going into the game and how they perform at the end of the game, that they lose so many of these close games because they can't execute. They're not defined enough as a team. K-State comes home on Saturday, plays Oklahoma. The Wildcats are 14-15 right now. They're a game below 500. They're nowhere near the NCAA tournament. Just stop. The best way they can get in the tournament is just win the damn Big 12 tournament. Win 3 in a row in Kansas City, and they haven't won 3 in a row against Big 12 competition in probably 3 years. That's an unofficial stat. I have not checked it. So they probably need to beat Oklahoma. They need to beat Oklahoma, in all likelihood, to stay out of the only Wednesday game against West Virginia. That's not good. But if they can beat Oklahoma and get that bye, which, 7 of the 9 teams playing Kansas City have byes, then they're going to have to find a way to take a 15-15 record and get in the tournament. The only way I see that being is 18-15 and you won the tournament and you earn the automatic bid. Because if you lose in the championship game, you're 17-16. And brother and sister, that ain't getting you in. Saturday's senior day. Show up. Mark Smith deserves it. boy, Mike McGurl deserves your love. He has given all he's got to Kansas State basketball and carried this roster through some really tough times. So I hope you can make it out for the guys. No matter where you stand on Bruce Weber, make it out for the guys. And I'll probably remind you of that very sentiment later in the week.